Hello guys, welcome back to the Mr. Smelly Fragrance Show. So today we're going to look at my top 10 designer fragrance recommendations for mature men. Before we get into that and new features today, I'm going to share with you 5 of my favourite, slightly peculiar comments from recent videos of mine.
Didn't work for me, sorry. Last thing many of us need is an attractive woman talking about a dream man. Personally, I've never encountered a fragrance that smells like it's worn by a man who likes to wear a tie. What next? The notes in this remind me of a man who has a smart belt. I gave a bottle of Zara leather to an old gypsy who sprayed it on his horse's neck to make it smell sexy.
Her dream guy's a rich alpha male. What a surprise. Lol, of course that guy can get Amy girl he wants, so why would he just stick with her?
Incorrect. Ragbar, though very sharp in the beginning, turns into a magical violet sweetness in the dry down. Not only leaves a great scent trail, but also projects and lasts way better. Train to Eat is far more inferior to this. Try properly before you comment, understand before you reply. And I think this one is probably my favourite. YSL Reef Gosh is still another my favourite barbershop scent, but I'm heartbroken because RG for Men has been discontinued. Why? In Dua Fragrances as RG for Men alternatives, it smells same with the RG for Men ever had.
Okay guys, yes, thank you very much to everyone who made those comments. No offence if you are one of those people. As long as comments are not offensive, I welcome opinions, however peculiar and however weirdly you phrase them. So let's move on. Today's video, 10 fragrances, designer fragrances for mature men, or at least ones that I think would be most suitable for mature men. Now, I've already made a sequel to this video. It's over on my Patreon group. If you sign up there, it costs just $2 a month. There's a link down in the description and in a comment down below, and you get an extra video from me every week. That one's kind of a follow-up from this one, an overspill. It does include a few niche fragrances too, so if you want to check that out, go and head on over there. I'd love to see you in there too. But let's get on with the main video here today. 10 fragrances for mature men. So what do I mean by this? I've done a previous video not so long ago called Smell Like a Modern Man, so kind of classy, modern smelling fragrances. Here we're going to go with ones that do have a little bit more of a grown-up, gentlemanly type of air. Some of them might smell a little bit dated or a little bit too grown-up for some people's tastes. Of course, whatever age you are, wear whatever you like, and if you're a man or a woman, you can wear whatever you like. So these, of course, if you're 18 or 21, you might want to feel grown up, feel a little bit sophisticated. Some of these could be perfect. And if you are 50, 60 years old and you want to wear Invictus Aqua, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. However, what I've also done here is I've tried to avoid fragrances which are cliched, really old school granddad type of smells. So although I quite like some of those, things like Aramis, the original Eau de Toilette, or even Polo Green from Ralph Lauren, the original. I have great respect for those fragrances. Maybe they're just a bit too dated for this list. I want things here that most people around you are still going to probably quite like and find okay and not off-putting and too old-fashioned. Let's get stuck into it, no more waffle. First of all then, let's try pronouncing that again. Le troisième homme de Caron. I'm sure people will say something about my pronunciation. I don't claim to be good at French pronunciations. Le troisième homme de Caron is from 1985, a relatively recent discovery of mine, a really incredible gem of a fragrance that doesn't get the respect that it deserves. It was first released way back in the mid-80s, but it still smells great today. It reminds me a little bit of Creed's Bois de Portugal, maybe. It has a beautiful citrusy opening, a certain greenness about the smell. Very much a spicy feel. There's a little bit of lavender in there to me, in common with the original Caron Pour Homme, which is a lavender bomb. This one a little bit more complex than that. It also has a clove note, which some people say is really dominant, and people who don't like the smell of cloves don't seem to like this one. I don't pick up on that as being a really dominant fragrance note. It reminds me a bit of Bois de Portugal by Creed. It reminds me even a little bit of New York Intense by Parfum de Nicolai, two great niche fragrances. So if you're interested to check this one out, you can pick it up for bargain prices. I think this 125ml cost me £53 only. I think that's a great steal for a really, really classy fragrance. This would be a great one for kind of dressed up in a suit and tie. You could wear it to work, nights out, that kind of thing. Are younger people around you going to really enjoy this one? Some of them might not get it, but I think, there's nothing kind of out there or animalic or really kind of, your uncle's bathroom or Old Spice-ish about it. So a really great fragrance. What do we mean by a mature man? You know, I'm over 40 now. I'm probably quite immature, though, according to my therapist. My emotional age is 9. So, anyway, enough about that. We're talking about we're thinking maybe 30, 35 upwards. You know, could be right up to 70, 80, 90, 100. If you're 21 years old, then you just want to feel grown up, these should work too. Let's move on to the next one then. We're going to go random order, no particular order. Armani Pour Homme, classic citrus aromatic fragrance. I think it was 1984 when Armani first released this one, and I think it was their first fragrance release for men. This is the vintage version. The modern one with the silver bottom, equally good to me, perhaps a tad bit fresher and zestier, and you never know how these vintage bottles age, so if anything, I just go and get yourself a new one. Don't worry about hunting for this. Lovely, again, hesperidic, citrusy kind of opening notes. There's a bit of patchouli in here, there's vetiver, there's a certain spiciness and a herbal tone in the middle, a bit more fresh than the previous one. Bit more of a citrus aromatic kind of vibe, but definitely some woody tones in here and some real balls and guts to it as well. But a very classy, refined, chic Italian kind of fragrance, a Mediterranean vibe about the scent, and very, very grown up smelling to me. It's not, you know, if you want Acqua di Gio, that's, even for many people, that now reminds them of the 90s or the 2000s, which is a long time ago in a way, but this one is a much more sophisticated and dressed up kind of scent, whereas Acqua di Gio with its aquaticness is, you know, for anybody of any age really. So that one, a great choice, and again, you don't hear many people talk about that here on YouTube. Next up then, it's the inevitable one here, Bentley for Men Intense, so often talked about as a real masterpiece and a cheapie. You can pick this up for outrageously cheap prices online. Of course, a British originating car company, now owned by people elsewhere in the world, I think, and a real bomb of booziness, a little bit of sweetness and leathery notes. It's got a little bit of bergamot in the opening. Apparently you don't pick up on that much. You're hit by this blast of boozy rum in the opening, which is really, really nice. There's bay leaf in there, giving a subtle kind of twist of some aromatics. Leather plays a big role in this one, as does patchouli, and there's a sweetness to the patchouli and the leather, maybe giving it a slight powerhouse feel, but not a really retro 80s powerhouse because of that boozy rum that you didn't really get in old school fragrances. Something of a niche vibe about this fragrance, and definitely for the colder seasons it's probably going to be more up your street than something to wear on a summer holiday or something like that. Very much an alpha male, you know, macho man type of fragrance, but a classy macho man at the same time. Really unique juice and stunning bargains available on that one, so well worth trying that one. For all you guys who want to be the most important man in the room, or at least perhaps the strongest smelling one, because it has a pretty potent sillage. By the way, the Caron also I find good in performance. The Armani just okay, actually not amazing. Maybe you expect that with a citrus aromatic though, I guess. So that's 3 down, maybe 7 to go if I've done my maths right. By the way, of course, I like old-fashioned smelling fragrances. I like fragrances that are aimed at the more mature gentleman and have that kind of vibe. That's why I created my own, which is a niche fragrance, so it's not in this list. Gravitas Pour Homme, now in stock in the USA and Canada. Follow the link in the description, and there's a link in the comments too. This is a superb grown-up fragrance, an aromatic fougere by perfumer John Stephen, and my brand there is called Norton & Wilson. Okay, so the next fragrance in the list, we're going to go with Egoist from Chanel. What an incredibly beautiful fragrance Egoist by Chanel is. It was first released back in 1990, and it's a real hidden gem in the Chanel lineup. Many people talk about some of the other ones from Chanel that came before this, and that they would all be pretty good choices, but I thought this was the most remarkable and universally appealing to all my viewers out there, some of whom may not want old school powerhouses that smell like many other things. Egoist is so unique. It has one of the best sandalwood notes in the designer fragrance game. It has mandarin in the opening too. There's a nice sweetness, there's some vanilla within this fragrance as well, and some floral notes including rose in there give a really nice balance. Creamy, a little bit spicy, masculine, beautiful sandalwood note. If you've smelled fragrances dominant in that note, you'll kind of know how that smells and how beautiful it can be. Absolutely stunning, classy stuff, and just really hard to categorize this. It's certainly not an aromatic fougere, woody, spicy, woody, oriental. I'm not sure, but it's certainly an absolute stunner. Classy, grown-up stuff, and you won't smell like many other people. And only in certain stores with the Chanel lineup do you find Egoist. So you're going to stand out a little bit. Next up, a much more modern release, and this is Dunhill's Icon Absolute. Great flanker to the original Dunhill Icon. It came out in the same year, 2015. To me, to simply describe it, I would say this is kind of the designer fragrance answer, I may be wrong in this, to Tom Ford's Oud Wood. It has that kind of oud note in it. It's also got black pepper. There's black rose. I'm not sure what black rose specifically smells like, but maybe a bit of a floral tone in there. There's pepper in this one too. There's vetiver. It's a very dark, kind of smooth oud, a modern designer-ish kind of oud, but very, very nicely done, not a weird funky fecal oud, and it has this real air of mystery about it. Performance not amazing, but the scent is absolutely beautiful, and I think Dunhill Icon Absolute, again, kind of an oud fragrance that's almost safe for the office, but I don't mean that in a boring, bland kind of way. Lovely bottle design as well, and you can get great prices on that too, so what's not to like? Next up then, a classic, and one that I haven't put in a video for a while, and it's time I fix that. Eau Sauvage Parfum, a modern classic, 2012 release. I have a backup bottle that just arrived today. I'm rather thrilled about that. Have we got the box somewhere? Let's see. Here's the box, and it's just stunning. Officially only 3 listed notes: bergamot, vetiver and myrrh. There was a 2017 reissue of this, reformulated, and Dior was sort of open about that. We're revamping it. That's also very good and quite similar. I prefer this. That one doesn't have the myrrh note. This one is darker and more resinous. It has a freshness that will remind you perhaps of the original Eau Sauvage from 1966, but then it has a lot more of a dark, spicy kind of undertone to it. There's a little bit of an incense-esque tone to this one, but it does hang on to that nice green, kind of zesty freshness, but it's kind of mixed in with this very enigmatic, hard to pin down kind of aura that this fragrance gives off. More of a nighttime fragrance maybe than the original Eau Sauvage. Other notes listings on Fragrantica and places like that, I've seen lavender mentioned, and I would agree there's some of that in there, and also patchouli I think is involved in this one, plus hedione, the important note from the original Eau Sauvage. So really, really beautiful, classy fragrance. If you can get an old bottle from 2012, go ahead. If you can get the 2017 one, that will do you nearly as well. It has a lot in common with that, just a slightly different, a slightly fresher twist. Some people prefer that. Both excellent, and definitely a masculine and grown-up kind of vibe, a dressed-up kind of fragrance. It's hard to envisage a young 18-year-old guy going out clubbing wearing that, but a very sophisticated, smart one perhaps would. Okay, next we're going with a bit more of a dad smell here. This has a certain datedness about it. In fact, it only came out in 2003. It's Yves Saint Laurent's Gravitas Pour Homme. Did a recent video. You can get the clone of this by Dua Fragrances, which is called River Fougère. This is now discontinued. It's a beautiful barbershop fragrance. It smells a bit like a really nice shaving foam. Again, you've got freshness and bergamot in the opening. There's a little bit of a star anise note, which may remind some people of licorice. Then you've got vetiver and oak moss. Smooth, creamy, well-dressed. Very similar to Brut, I think, from Fabergé. Not many other people have said that, but I think it's kind of a smartened up version of Fabergé's Brut, which is a bit of a cliche old school smell, but it's smartened up for the 21st century. It still smells great today. Bit of a retro barbershop vibe, so you've got to like that vibe, but definitely, yeah, I think any sophisticated, well-dressed man would do pretty well. A great office or daytime scent, maybe not seductive or sexy for the nighttime, but you can be sexy in yourself. Your fragrance doesn't have to do that for you. Now, here we go, back in time again. Habit Rouge, 1966. I think when people say timeless, it's an overused cliche, isn't it? But it's really true when we say it in relation to this fragrance. This is a stunningly beautiful fragrance. Just smells like, you can't say, oh, it smells like the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. It doesn't necessarily smell modern. It's really, really just unique. It has a citrus kind of opening thing, as so many of these do. Lovely rose note in this one, and then this guirlandade, a famous kind of accord which mixes maybe benzoin sweetness with a certain powdery feel, done to an absolute T in here. So it's kind of an oriental fragrance, which means it's a little bit spicy, sweet and exotic, but it's got a certain bitter greenness about it as well, and a little bit of a citrus freshness. Perfect balance. Really hard to describe this one. Apparently Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones used to wear it, and he's quite mature now. In fact, I would actually not think of him as the typical person. I'd envisage it's someone a little bit more smartly dressed and perhaps better behaved than Keith Richards. Great stuff. Still a total classic and really cheaply available. Performance overall on that one, quite good but not amazing. And in general, the ones I've mentioned so far, okay in performance. The one that's quite strong is Eau Sauvage Parfum. Absolute icon, not so amazing. Rive Gauche, about average. So yeah, that's performance. Now, 2 left to go. A modern classic again here. Aramis Tobacco Reserve. I think it only came out in 2018. So whereas the original Aramis is a little bit smelling like your granddad might have worn it, he literally may well have done. I actually like it, but the newest flanker of one of many is a completely different story. So a lovely kind of creamy tobacco scent. It's really a mixture of a very well done tobacco note with creamy tonka bean. If that appeals to you, you're going to love this. There's almost a semi-gourmandish sweetness to it, but in no way is it a juvenile or trivial kind of sweetness that you might get in your bubblegum-esque fragrances, your 1 million and its flankers. It's sophisticated and it's classy. It's creamy. It doesn't have any kind of old school fougere vibe. It doesn't have any kind of Aramis excessive leathery, maybe slightly animalic undertones. It's very easy to like. Anyone can enjoy this. People around you surely are going to like it. A bit subtle in its performance, but it's sophisticated and classy stuff. So great scent for anyone looking to feel a bit grown up, I think, that one. Last but not least, one we really rarely hear mentioned, and thank you to Wafts from the Loft, a great channel who you can check out if you type in Wafts from the Loft on YouTube. They have it's 2 guys, English reviewers, and they review a lot of stuff that's kind of off the radar. They like their niche stuff and their old school fragrances, and this was one they helped me discover. Mouchoir de Mature from the House of Guerlain, first created way back in 1904, would you believe? Still stands up today. Again, there's a fresh citrusness in the opening. There's a certain sweetness in this one as well. There's quite a bit of lavender. It's almost a bit of a barbershop feel. It's very dandified. I almost feel like I should be wearing a Baroque wig or something like that and dressed up in some kind of ridiculous aristocratic costume from the 17th or 16th, 17th, it's hard with the centuries, isn't it? The century where the numbers began with 17th, the 17th, the 18th century, right? I feel like I should be dressed like that, never mind 1904 when I wear this. It's very ostentatious, powdery, floral notes, a little bit of an animalic kind of thing. Some people compare it to Jiki, a very funky one for ladies from Guerlain, and this one has that animalic funk, so it's a little bit polarizing, this one, but it's you know, definitely something for a very grown-up, slightly bold person, I think, with this one. Okay performance, not outrageous. Fantastic bottles, reasonably priced. Stunner from the House of Guerlain. Check it out, Mouchoir de Mature, if you really want to stand out from the crowd. Guys, I think that's about it. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Let me know what you thought about my choices down there. I might do a niche version of this, top 10 niche fragrances for the mature man, coming up soon. And you can also, of course, check out the sequel, prequel, honourable mention extra video over on my Patreon group. Thank you ever so much. It's been a pleasure to describe these to you. I'll see you in the next video. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. Bye-bye.